Today, we're talking about something that affects millions of men but is rarely discussed openly. Why are so many men struggling to talk about grief, depression, and emotional pain? From childhood messages like boys don't cry to societal pressure to always appearing strong, men often learn that vulnerability is dangerous. Today, I have a special guest, Mr. Dontay Williams, and he is going to unpack some of those untruths in the male community. So, welcome, Dontay, to the stage. All right, Mr. Dontay, let the audience know a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my name is Dontay Williams. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. I also founded Mental Health on Purpose. So really excited to be a part of this platform today. Part of our mission and goal is to have intentional conversations around topics of mental health. So really excited as we approach Men's Day and all of that and having this open conversation around men's mental health. So really appreciative to you, Miss Virginia, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah.
All right, let's go. So, many men are taught from childhood to be strong and not show emotions. So, how do those early messages shape the way men deal with grief and mental health later on in life?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we almost have to shift the conversation, right? So when we ask, like, why don't men talk about depression or grief, it's not so much why they don't talk about it. It's more or less like we were never taught how to communicate it, right? I would even suggest that, men, we do share our emotions, right? Maybe it's not so much conversational wise. Um, but there's certain aspects that we do see. So yeah, really shifting the conversation. I think growing up we didn't learn how to communicate our emotions. I reflect on my father, Vietnam veteran, military, right? We were up at 7
Mhm.
a.m. cleaning the house. But being able to express those emotions is not something that we're taught at an early age, for certain. Yeah.
Do you think that's something that you struggle with, especially when a lot of people with the military parents is structured and is strict and is bam, bam, bam? Did you think that affected you with the way you express emotions?
Yeah, absolutely. At least in the beginning, until we get the knowledge and the skill sets and the tools on how best to communicate those things. For me, I think we all, if it's man or woman, right, at some point we have to find our voice and to be able to communicate the messages or what's happening inside of us outwardly. So yeah, I would definitely say struggle with it, and probably will always be some aspect of it as well.
Okay, great. So, in your experience, what are some of the biggest emotional barriers that prevent men from opening up about depression or personal struggles?
Yeah, certainly. For me, the first one that comes to mind is just like the fear of appearing weak, right? When
Mm,
you think about just being a man, or in this society, it's a position of leadership. How are we leading our home? How are we leading within our church community, within the community itself? And so oftentimes there's that fear of just appearing as weak or maybe not knowing. I would also add a lack of emotional language. So how are we, not having the language to communicate, what we're experiencing? And so oftentimes it may come off as anger, right? And
mm,
one thing that we know from counseling, anger is a secondary emotion, right? It's never the primary emotion that we're feeling. And so not having that language to communicate the betrayal, right? The fear and the anxiety. Um, some other barriers might be fear of losing control. I know that this is a unique one, and I feel like a lot of men can resonate with this one. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And so watch this. I think it's more or less like if I go to that emotional place and I share those things, where will it take me? And even sometimes it can be a personal fear of I may lose control, and what does that look like? Um,
Mm,
so I think it's important, one, to create a safe environment to have those conversations, but knowing that that could be a potential barrier. And just lastly, I would say a lack of safety and just a consistent space where we can have those conversations without the fear of judgment, right, or losing that sense of power. Yeah.
That's good. And as you were speaking and saying those things, I came up with your three L's. And I
Okay.
was just doing it listening to you. So you said language, lose control, and lack of safety.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
those three L's. So what about the language? What type of language? And you could do a pro and a con, or the healthy language, or the negative language. But what are some differences in the language? Like the language that men usually express, that shows depression and all of those unhealthy ways, and then
Yeah.
the healthy way to do it.
Yeah, so I would say, right, when feeling depressed or anxious, right, how is that communicated? You think about our relationships, right? Oftentimes, that looks like isolation, right? That looks like shutting down in the conversation, not being able to express, ourselves fully. And it can look like a lot of different things, taking out stress in the workplace, bringing that home. So yeah, not having really the words or the language to understand, and sometimes it's a lack of insight, right? I don't even know that I'm anxious. I just know that there's this feeling, right, that feels uncomfortable, and so I
Hmm.
might bounce back to my own roots of, anger, frustration, and so
Hmm.
forth. I would just like to elaborate on that safe space. I think in relationships, one of the things that was really on my mind is, at least in a relationship dynamic, the wife or the spouse always wants the man to share, right? Like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going on, what's happening in your mind. Part of my thought was first being able to recognize, like, what are those warning signs that he is in a negative space, right? Is he shutting down? And so, what I would say to anyone who's supporting a man who may be struggling emotionally is like, there are some warning signs, right? Lack of communication, maybe coming home late. And oftentimes we know what those are. And part of our journey is just acknowledging and accepting that that is true, right? And then in a space where maybe he's not as frustrated and angry, we can have the conversation about how to support that individual.
Mm.
But I say that to say that there are always warning signs. There is always some type of expression. We just have to see it.
Right. And then I know that a lot of times women think that the man just don't want to talk to them, or they don't love them, or they don't want to hear what they have to say or whatever, when it's not actually that's not the case. They just have some of those barriers
Hmm.
that you just mentioned. And I'm glad you gave some insight on the warning signs to help, men and women, because it could be family members too trying to help a male family
Absolutely.
member to
Yeah.
learn how to express their emotions, because a lot of times family members are the ones that get stuck with trying to take care of them after their relationship failed, and then
Yeah.
they have to go back home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So how do we create that safe space? And I think counseling can be a really good place. I know sometimes you got to get the man in the door, and I've seen women do very unique things like find a male counselor such as myself, right? Or
Hmm.
someone that they may feel more comfortable with. But that safe space is so critical as well.
Hmm. How do you create a safe space? Like, do you see mostly men or women, or you have a variety?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a variety, men and women. I think being a male therapist, sometimes you do get more men who are willing to try, right, with another male.
Hmm.
But yeah, creating that safe space. I think first it's awareness, right? And even, counseling is a relationship, right? I want to
Hmm.
get to know you, like you should get to know me. And that way, we can have a sense of safety. Yeah.
Okay. What type of clients you have? Do you use insurance, self pay? You have a scale, sliding scale, or?
Yeah, so I do all of the above, in this world. So first off, I'll say Mental Health on Purpose. We are a nonprofit as well,
Oh, okay.
and so anyone who may need like a sliding scale or alternative options, we do provide that. Um, but yeah, couples counseling, individual, and a whole gambit.
Okay, that's good. All right, so let's take a quick commercial break. But before we take a quick break, I want you all to think about, especially the males, because it's July's Males Mental Health Month. So, what happens when you have no one to lean on? Because that's a big thing too. Like when you have to feel like you have to do it yourself. Well, most people do have people to lean on, but they want to be that strong male figure. So they like, okay, let me, do this because I want to seem strong and not weak by asking people. So while we go to a quick commercial break, think about that question, and then we'll come back with Mr. Dontay Williams, and he will continue giving you some tips and tools on how to overcome your depression and your emotional barriers that you experience as a male. So stay tuned. One quick minute.
Welcome to the Girl Talk Mental Health. Girl Talk Mental Health dares to go where others won't. We unpack the hard truths about mental health, dissect trending topics, and challenge the stereotypes and stigmas holding us back. From navigating the 6 dimensions of wellness to redefining social norms, this is more than a discussion. It's a revolution in how we care for our minds and souls. Ready for bold, honest conversations that spark change? Let's dive in. It's time for Real Talk with real impact.
Okay, welcome back with Mr. Dontay Williams. He's a therapist in, you said Georgia,
Yeah.
and we are highlighting Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so he is here to give you, your male companion, your daddy, your sister, not your sister, yeah, your sister too, but your brother, your uncles, all of the males out there, some tips and tools on how to help you through your emotional states. So, Mr. Dontay, many men express their emotional pain through anger. You said this stuff at the first half, anger, withdrawals, or work rather than words. So, how many families and partners recognize when a man is struggling emotionally, even if he isn't talking about it? And you touched on that a lot at the
Yeah.
beginning, too. Hmm.
No, absolutely. I think the question that you even asked when before we went to break is when like we have no one there, like who can we turn to? One thing I want to say, there's always this view of the absence of mental health, right? Addressing it within the men community. I had the opportunity to be CEO for a different nonprofit organization. And what we did was we trained barbers and beauticians to be mental health advocates. So
Mm,
watch this within the community, right? That barbershop cut sometimes is that place where men are connecting, right? One thing I would really recommend or suggest to the men listening is what does your community look like, right?
mhm.
Where do you get that sense of relief? Because family can be stressful, right? Work can be stressful. So where's the outlet? And so really encourage if it's and it doesn't have to be mental health forward, right? Just connecting in a sense of community. If that's a bowling league, if that's going to the barber shop, right? How are we attending to our community? I think can be a good thing as well.
Right. That's a good factor because community is always going to be there. As soon as you step out of your door, the community is everywhere. Step out of the grocery store, step out at work. Is always a community and somebody that's there to embrace you. So that's great. Thank you for the information. So,
Yeah.
what are some practical ways that men can begin expressing their emotions in healthy ways without feeling like they are losing their sense of strength or identity?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think we gotta be comfortable with doing the uncomfortable, right? No one. I mean, some people are open to counseling, and I think the stigma has really gone away or is going away as we challenge that. But yeah, pushing ourselves to be uncomfortable. I almost say counseling is not easy because now we're finally talking about the things we hadn't been talking about, right?
Mhm.
Now we're finally reflecting on, my how my parents treated me as a kid and how that affects how I show up today. So, counseling is not easy. But watch this. I think as men, we're used to doing hard things, but
There you
becoming
go. That's good.
and now we got to get used to becoming uncomfortable, right? And having those conversations. And so, my real recommendation would be, one way to do it is look at the men in your life, right? If there's someone, that you hold in high esteem, maybe that's a mentor, right? But also trying out that counseling. I think it can be uncomfortable, but eventually that uncomfortability leads us to change and ultimately success. Yeah.
Okay. And so for the men that are watching right now and who are feeling overwhelmed but doesn't know how to start talking about his mental health, what would you say to that man?
Yeah, I want to say I get it. Like I've been there. And watch this. Life isn't so much about getting rid of everything that's bad, right? In counseling, I'll transparency, I'll say sometimes life sucks. It's hard, it's difficult. And it's not so much about how do I avoid the difficulties of life, but do I have the tools and the skill sets to navigate that? The reality is that something hard will happen, and can I cope, right? Is alcohol my only cope? Is yelling and frustration my only coping? Or, do I have some other tools in that toolbox? And so that's what I would just encourage.
Yeah, because it usually is like sometimes you have to make that decision. Do I want to handle things in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way? Because either way, you're gonna have to deal with with the
Yeah.
situation. But it's how you deal with it that kind of is a determining factor of how you move forward with it.
And it all catches up eventually, right? All those years of neglecting the emotions, neglecting the conversations, it catches up. If that's divorce, if that's now my liver's failing, right now I got to go to detox and really address this thing. So yeah, we can start now.
So think, and you might have to think, because I'm putting you on the spot with some of this stuff.
No
So
worries.
what? Think about one of your most difficult male clients. Tell us about that.
Well, most difficult. I don't know. I tend to do well with the difficult clients. I like the resistance and the challenge of it all. Um, yeah, so it's hard for me to think. I think difficult in the normal sense, and I think the way that it's just simply being present, right? We're all human. We can have a conversation, and so for me. I like to think of counseling as very much a conversation, right? Like my goal isn't to give you the magic pill, the answers, right? But can we facilitate a process of change? So is the environment comfortable? Yeah. Can we just relate to one another? And if so, let's have a conversation.
Because you do have a smooth, inviting demeanor. Like it would make anybody want to open up, because you don't seem, because most men don't like the intimidation, right? They don't want to go to another man who seem like they're intimidating them or being stronger than them. And now you're going to tell me what to do and all of this stuff. So I
Yeah.
think that would probably be one of the strong points that I've noticed about you as well. So
Thank you, thank
I'm
you.
sure.
And let me share this for all of the people interested in counseling. It's not a place where we get advice, right? The goal isn't I'm the expert, right? And I'm going to tell you how to fix your life. And matter of fact, the goal isn't to give advice, but watch this. Can we talk about what makes us uncomfortable and understand that, right? The more insight I have as it relates to who I am and my struggles, then I can actually address it and do something about it. Yeah, our goal isn't to assume that we have all the right answers and we're going to fix your life, but let's have a conversation about it.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, I sure appreciate all of the information you shared today. You have any closing remarks, anything that I didn't ask that you would like to put out there to help the men this month?
Yeah, no, I just want to say honestly, we see you, and that men are so valuable to our community, to every aspect of this thing that we're doing here called life. And so I just want to encourage us to stay in the game, try something different, become comfortable with the uncomfortable, and challenge ourselves in new ways. Um, hey, listen, if it's not me as a counselor that you resonate or connect with, guess what? There's somebody out there, right? We just got to knock on the door for certain.
All right. And just a question to pivot off that, because you mentioned community throughout the whole episode. So what are some because people might not know what community is and how to grab the community or how to use the community. What tips you have for that, or what do they need to look for, how they can use the community to their
Yeah.
advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say start with a place that you're interested in. Like as I mentioned before, if you like bowling, if you like basketball, I really appreciate. I find that people who have a connection with the church community, right? There's accountability in those type of communities where at man to man, we can come and talk about where we're failing, and it's okay, right? So I would say connecting with the church community, finding those things that pique your interest, right? And
Hmm.
watch this. Maybe over time, life has beaten us down so bad that we forgot our interests, right? And so,
Hmm.
going back to those old things and reconnecting can be a starting point. Yeah.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people, when they think about community, they thinking of something grand and everything, but it's actually just their hobbies and the
Yeah,
things in their interest that they could connect with,
yeah,
which is a lot easier than what they're probably thinking
yeah,
when you say community. They probably thinking the government, the mental health institution, those types of things. And
yeah.
so,
And there
yeah.
are some mental health organizations I definitely recommend, such as NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, have really great community groups. Al-Anon, for family members of a person who may be struggling with addiction, right? There's communities for support there. And there's even grief groups, right? Different types of specialized communities. And one of the things I'll say is oftentimes we always want the individual counseling, right? We want that one-on-one attention. But there's so much power in group counseling, because we recognize that we're not the only ones going through it. And then also to be able to hear different perspectives on how to overcome things can be beneficial. So I'm a strong proponent of communities, if that's group counseling, individual, and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, the group counseling. And there's even things online these days because sometimes people
Yeah.
work so much or whatever that they don't have the opportunity to go face to face, or they don't have anything that's nearby. Because if they don't have transportation or whatever, then, they can't really go to the actual place. But there are a lot of things online these days that people can connect to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Williams, let the audience know where they can connect with you and if you have something going on that they can find you and any special offers or anything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would just direct you all to our website. It's mentalhealthonpurpose.com. And again, our goal is to have intentional conversations, be intentional about the work that we're doing. So, yeah, if you have an opportunity or just want to connect further, mentalhealthonpurpose.com. Also, email address connect@mhonp, for connect@mentalhealthonpurpose.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
All right, that sounds good. So, you have to know, everybody, that silence doesn't heal pain. Connection does. And he gave a lot of great ways to connect. And you are not alone. We will see you next week for another powerful episode of Girl Talk Mental Health. This is July. We're focusing on the men. All this month, we're going to have some powerful men therapists that's going to give you some great tips and tools to help you to have the successful and prosperous life that you deserve. So see you next time for Girl Talk Mental Health, the therapist takeover.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Girl Talk Mental Health. Remember, your mental health is your wealth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to at Virginia Del Manning.